Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for being here this morning. My name is Daniel Flesch, Senior Policy Analyst for the Middle East in the Allison Center for National Security here at the Heritage Foundation. And this is a very special event we have on this Tuesday morning. It's been 500 days since October 7th, when Hamas invaded Israel and abducted 251 men, women, the elderly, children, and even babies. 500 days that 73 people still remain captive in Hamas's terror tunnels. That's 73 Israelis and Americans, 73 families hoping to receive news that their loved ones are surviving, and 73 different stories. Today, we're going to hear from a few of these families, including someone who was rescued. But first, it's my privilege to introduce Dr. Victoria Coates for some introductory remarks. Dr. Coates is the Vice President of the Davis Institute for National Security and Foreign Policy here at the Heritage Foundation. She previously served as Deputy National Security Advisor to the Middle East under President Trump's first administration and has had other national security positions in Congress and various federal agencies. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Victoria to the stage. Thank you.
Well, thank you all for joining us here today. Preparing for these remarks, it was hard for me to wrap my head around the fact that it's been now 501 agonizing days since the horrific Hamas attacks of October 7th, 2023. I know for those who have endured captivity or who have had a loved one taken, each of those days has been a fresh hell of suffering and uncertainty. Every hostage who has been returned is a blessing, and those who have survived are an amazing testimony to the strength of the human spirit under the most vile of conditions. I want to extend my personal welcome to the Heritage Foundation to Ilana Gritzewsky, a former hostage whose boyfriend, Matan Zangauker, remains in captivity. Elana, you honor us with your presence, and Matan will be in our prayers. I also want to welcome Eli David, whose brother Evyatar remains in Gaza, Gal Goboa Dalal, whose brother Guy remains in Gaza, and Moshe Lavi, whose brother-in-law Omri Miran remains in Gaza. May they all come home soon. Among the atrocities committed on October 7th, the mass abduction of 252 innocents, most of them civilians, stands out. It is, to my knowledge, the largest modern terrorist hostage-taking, dwarfing, for example, the 1979 hostage-taking at the American Embassy in Tehran, and now surpassing that episode, which was 444 days in duration. This was not an accidental occurrence that took place in the heat of the moment. It was an integral part of Hamas's planning, designed to inflict the maximum pain on the entire nation of Israel, indeed on the entire global Jewish community, as the terrorists didn't ask for anyone's passports and scooped up victims, including Americans, indiscriminately. At first, it seemed there might be a timely conclusion to the hostage crisis, as some releases were negotiated in December of 2023, including Elana, but those ran dry in 2024. The Israeli Defense Forces heroically rescued a few in the spring, including Noah Argamani. We miss her today, but we know she is here in spirit as we continue to give thanks for her return. In September, we had the horrible news that 3 hostages were executed point blank in the tunnels shortly before they were to be rescued. Their recovered bodies revealed the horrible conditions under which they had been kept, starved, and deprived of basic necessities, even air. This ugly reality has been further demonstrated by the condition of some of those recently released, making the urgency to get anyone else out we can all the more acute. Our purpose here today is to bear witness to the most recent grim post-October 7th milestone, 500 days of captivity for the remaining hostages as of yesterday, which we pray is coming to a resolution. It's not a time for politics, but I do think we can reflect on the effect of different styles of American leadership on this crisis. While President Biden does deserve credit for his early visit to Israel in the days after the attacks and his words of support while there, it does not appear that Hamas feared a strong U.S. reprisal for the hostage-taking, even though there were Americans among them, and were emboldened to string out their agony as long as they could during the Biden administration. Only after then President-elect Trump's strong statement on the hostages in early December did the situation start to shift. Rather than trying to persuade or cajole Hamas into letting them go, President Trump famously threatened that all hell would break loose if the hostages were not returned. Finally, more hostages started to come out last month, and there will hopefully be 10 more, 6 of them living, this coming week. Let's let that sink in for a minute. The fact that Hamas considers holding the bodies of dead innocents for 500 days as a legitimate tool of statecraft tells you everything you need to know about how deeply corrupted and broken that terrorist organization is, and what an impossible situation Israel is in, having to deal with these devils to try to get their people back. I am glad the new Trump administration has been equally forceful in their expressions of support for Israel's just and necessary actions against Hamas, as well as their recognition that a decision to resume the war once as many hostages are recovered as possible will be an internal Israeli security matter, not something to be dictated by the United States. In reality, we are in this war together because if the forces of evil that broke into southern Israel now 501 days ago are not defeated, they will not be satisfied with regrouping to attack the Jewish state again. They will be coming for the United States as well. We watched here at Heritage last summer as the pro-Hamas supporters protesting Prime Minister Netanyahu's speech to Congress marched past our building, winding up down Massachusetts Avenue at Union Station, where they ripped down the flags, burned them, and replaced them with Palestinian flags. And these weren't Israeli flags that they burned. They were American flags. If the terrorists defeat the little Satan, Israel, it is only a matter of time before the great Satan, America, is in the crosshairs. So thank you, Elana, Eli, Gal, Moshe, for being with us today and helping all of us in the Heritage community to better understand your experience and to learn about your loved ones. Thank you.
Thank you, Victoria. Now it's my distinct honor and pleasure to welcome Ilana to the stage for a few remarks.
Hi. 500 days. 500 days of suffering, of fear, of not knowing if I will see the people I love again. 500 days without any idea of what was happening with my Matan. Every day was a torture. I didn't know if he was alive, if he was suffering, if he was safe. Every day I ask myself, how can you live not knowing if the people you love are still alive? How could you stay sane when you are so far from them, unable to help them, not knowing if they are safe or if they are harmed? I can really describe what I went through, how this pain affects the soul, how each day feels like eternity. My body returned, but my soul remains trapped. I always feel that I am not really free. I cannot forget what happened, what I experienced, what I know Matan and the other hostages have experienced. I am Ilana Gritzewsky. I was brutally kidnapped by the Hamas terrorist organization. On October 7, 6:30 in the morning, my life changed forever. That morning, Matan, my partner, and I were sleeping at home, surrounded by everything we love. Within minutes, terror was upon us. We wake up in red alert sirens, like every time before, without imagining that this time it was not just sirens. It was an attack by armed, founded, and shocking terrorists who entered our home with intention to destroy everything dear to us. At first, I hear gunshots and shout in Arabic, and immediately realized that hell was before us. We locked in our safe room, Matan holding the door all his might, while I tried to calm our dog to keep quiet. But we already knew they are going house to house in our kibbutz near us, looking to kill, kidnap, and rape. It was our turn, like a roulette. They broke into my house, shooting every direction and breaking everything, until Matan could no longer hold the door. At that moment, we jumped out the window in attempt to escape dead. Our life was shattered. At that moment, I lost contact with Matan. I hid behind a hardboard in the back porch of my neighbors. They were murdered, and they still held captivity by Hamas. God Judith, American citizens. Slowly, I hear the sound of dry leaves breaking and the shout of terrorists approaching. And then they grab me by the hair, hit me in my stomach, causing me to lose my breath. They damage me across the floor, lift me, and throw me against the wall. They point me guns at me, hit me, try to fill me with my phone. I raised my hands, told them I was Mexican, begging them not to hurt me, not to rape me, not to shoot me, let me go. And the only thing I couldn't think about was Matan. I thought about my family. They didn't need to see me die like this. They'd meet me, humiliate me, threw me on a motorcycle, and took me to Gaza. Along the way, they beat me, shook me, humiliated, touched me, all over. I see near us the place where we built our lives, trashed to ash. 1 every 4 people was murdered or kidnapped. I spent 55 days in captivity, day and night in hell. I never knew what to expect. Night interrogations, movements to different locations, from one civilian home to the next, or to a hospital. I was constantly being used as a human shield. I spent time in tunnels where it was hard to breathe. There was stifling, there was no light, and walking was nearly impossible. I did not know if I was day or night. You lose your senses of time. It becomes eternity. They took away my humanity, piece by piece. Each time they moved me, tell me I was on my way home. I was physically broken, a burned leg, I lost hearing in the left ear, a broken pelvis, a jaw was damaged, and I was mentally broken. We had almost no food. I lost 24 pounds. We had almost no water, no hygiene, no medications. I suffered colitis and anemia. They were ready to keep us alive, only to exploit us even more. I spent entire days starving and hungry. Every little thing I ate, I couldn't keep it down. I felt that I had no strength left to fight. But in captivity, all I could think about was Matan and my family. Think about how he survives, the suffering he goes through, and all the other family of the kidnapped waiting to their turn. I did not know if it was day or night, if I was going to survive or die. And these were the moments when I developed deep post-trauma. The feeling that you can feel safe, that my life isn't mine, that my body is disconnected from my soul. No one can understand this feeling until they experience in themselves. Day after day, break after break, endless frustration. And then I arrived at release, not whole, no satisfied, no feeling free. My body is here, but my heart is still in captivity with my boyfriend Matan. My soul remains raped with the promise I gave to my friends before I left the tunnels. Nothing we will return to how it was. I was released after 55 days, and exactly 400 days before, the kidnapped, Matan, and the others remain there in Gaza behind. They are still in prison, suffering just as I suffered, with no clear hope for return. Understand, my body may have returned, but the deepest part within me is still there. The world does not understand the magnitude of this trauma. We, the kidnapped, clinging to our emotion fragments, left severed. And I can stop thinking about each of the kidnapped. Cannot stop thinking about my Matan. And until we bring them all home, nothing will stop. I cannot rest. I cannot recover. I cannot be silent. Because the world must act every day, every hour, every minute that passes. We don't forget them. They are not just names. They are people, people from whom life was stolen. 5 days is not only too much, it's unacceptable. I pray for the day when I can stop counting. It must stop now. We must bring all of them home now. Every additional second that passes is 1 second too much. The time to act is now. Thank you.
Ilana, words cannot express our gratitude in you being here, sharing your story. We hear a lot about hostages, we hear about the family members, but it is invaluable to have a witness, to have someone who went through that horrific experience sharing with us. Thank you very much. I want to say a quick note before I invite some family members up to the stage and just say that they are here because of an organization called the Hostages and Missing Persons Family Forum, and I want to note they pulled out a full-page ad in today's Wall Street Journal thanking President Trump and asking him to, knowing that there are still 73 hostages remain, and they need to come home today, need to come home now. So they're here, these individuals are here on behalf of this organization that have been doing phenomenal work over the last 16 months, last 501 days. But in addition to Matan, who we saw on the screen, I'd like to introduce everyone to 3 more names of those who are being held hostage by Hamas. Eviatar David, Guy Gilboa Dalal, and Omri Miran. Here to speak about their loved ones are Eviatar's brother Eli, Guy's brother Gal, and Moshe Lavi, Omri's brother-in-law. Eli, Gal, and Moshe, if you join me on stage. Okay, gentlemen, thank you again very much for being here. I want to give you an opportunity basically to share your stories. Like I mentioned, you each have a loved one who is being held right now in Gaza at Hamas. So I want to start off with those in the audience who the audience here, but those many more who are watching us online, and this video will live on past this morning, give you an opportunity to share a story about yourselves and the loved ones that are currently being held in Gaza. And Moshe, I want to start with you.
Thank you everyone for coming today. My name is Moshe. I'm the brother-in-law from Miran, who was taken hostage on October the 7th from Kibbutz Nahal Oz. Omri is married to my sister, Lishai, father to my nieces, Ronnie and Alma. They built, Lishai and Omri built a beautiful home together in the kibbutz, brought to the world Ronnie and Alma, and thought that they're going to have a beautiful life as a couple. They met in March 2020, and within 3 years, really changed their life completely because they fell in love with each other. On October the 7th, Omri was taken hostage. Hamas terrorists barged into their home. They held all of them captive for hours in the kibbutz. They grouped them with another family in the kibbutz, whose eldest daughter was murdered that morning. And at around 1:30 p.m., they separated Omri from Lishai and the girls. Omri was handcuffed and was taken to the Gaza Strip. My sister Lishai told him she loves him, she'll take care of the girls, and asked him not to be a hero. He responded that he loves her, and that's the last time they've spoken to each other ever since. Omri is a shiatsu therapist, a gardener, lover of sports, literature, a spiritual person connected to nature, to the earth, comes from a farming community. His father is a farmer. He's exactly the person you want to spend time with a gentle heart and a kind soul. And we're fighting to bring him home so that my nieces, Ronnie and Alma, will have a father who is not a poster, because they've been saying daddy to a poster for the past over 500 days.
Thank you very much. Gal, I want to turn to you. Share a story about your brother.
So Guy is was 22 years old when he was kidnapped. He celebrated his 23rd birthday while still in captivity. Guy was kidnapped from the Nova Music Festival along with his best childhood friend, Eviatar David, Eli's brother. They went there with their two other best friends, a boy and a girl that became a couple just a week before the festival, who were both brutally murdered. I was with them at the festival. I arrived with a separated car, and I was fleeing for 10 hours in the area, trying to call them, having no clues about what's going on with them. And only once I was rescued, I learned that Guy and Eviatar were kidnapped, and Hamas published a video of them in Hamas tunnels in Gaza already, cuffed, saying their name to the camera, looking frightened, but they were still alive and healthy, physically at least, and that gave us a lot of hope. My brother is my best friend. We have seven years difference between us, but you can't really see it. We share the same interests and hobbies. We're playing the same games. We see the same movies. We love the same sports team. My brother is a brilliant young man. He taught himself how to read, speak, and write Japanese because he fell in love with the culture. He wanted to go see the sakura season on last April, but his plans were cut in the middle.
Thank you. Thank you. And Eli, please, about your brother.
Thank you. So, my name is Eli. I'm 27. I have a brother and a sister. Eviatar was 22 as well when he went to the Nova Festival. And when he was kidnapped, I was at my parents' home, and we just hid from the rockets that Hamas shot at us. Try to understand what is going on with Eviatar. We knew Eviatar is hiding. We know that he is very close to the terrorists. And we had very long hours of searching and trying to understand what is going on. We were panicked, and then we had the sad privilege to open Telegram and see Eviatar while he's lying on the floor right next to Guy's brother, when they're both tied up and beaten and terrified and looking straight into the camera. And since then, actually since that horrible day, we feel like that we wake up to the same movie of horror. Same for them. They are at the same situation at the dungeons underground. So we are trying to save their lives right now. Eviatar is now 24. He had his second birthday in captivity on December. He is a beautiful man, the kindest person I know. He's a very talented guitar player. He plays since he's 12, and I play the piano, and we play music every week together. That's what bonds us. And he has a beautiful voice, and we sing together. And I miss him. My parents need their son. My younger sister needs her older brother. And we'll do anything to get him back.
Amen. Thank you all. On that point about it's felt like a very long time, which it has, and Ilana talked about the feeling of eternity as well. Yes, so today is the 501st day. Yesterday was 500. And I know that the families of hostages were advocating for a fast during the day yesterday in commemoration, or in solidarity perhaps. 500 minutes, 1 minute for each day. 500 minutes is basically 8 hours and 20 minutes. And I'm sure instead of a minute, each day feels like an eternity. At the 500-day mark, can you talk about just the length of what this has been enduring and going on, where you are today versus where you are in the first 100 days, or with every successive hope, an event that progresses, where your headspace are at?
I can share that irrespective of where we are, I just want the audience to imagine how a minute feels for the hostages. From returning hostages, we know that they are chained. Many of the young men are chained. Some are hanged from their legs. They're tortured with irons. They are deprived of food, of sunlight, of water. They're showering maybe once in a few months. They're being taunted, abused. Some were sexually violated. Imagine yourself in their shoes, what a minute would mean then. One of the returning hostages said that they were not counting days, they were counting seconds, because they endured so much suffering. And while you see their smiling face of reunions when they return home, you need to understand how much they're feeling inside. So what we endured is immaterial. We are here, we're enjoying the comfort of here of Washington, D.C., comfort of our homes in Israel. It's not ideal, but we are free people, and we're fighting for our loved ones. But we're not the ones who truly suffer. Those who truly suffer are the hostages, and every second they spend in captivity is eternity for them. And that's what we try to emphasize to the policymakers we meet, beyond the geopolitical considerations, beyond the long-term grandiose goals they may or may not have. What matters to many Israelis are the hostages and their freedom. And I think this needs to be marked in our heads, that irrespective of what sort of hardships we feel, multiplied by millions, And that's how they feel right now.
You can add?
I just want to stress out that because of this great suffering, we have to bring them back as soon as possible. And we also don't know what will happen tomorrow. We have seen what happens when hostages become a burden. They are being executed. So right now we know our loved ones are alive, but will they be tomorrow? We cannot know for sure. So we have to bring them back alive as soon as possible.
500 days are way too much. None of us ever thought it will take so long to return them. I remember when it happened, all of us felt like when they will return together. And now we're looking about phase 2 that isn't having been closed. It's not a closed deal yet. And we're just waiting to understand what it will mean for our loved ones. And the hardest part in it all is thinking that, as Ilana said, she feels like her boyfriend would be the last to return. And thinking about that, I can't imagine my brother go back without Eviatar, without Omri, without Matan. We need all the hostages. And thinking that it could take a long time, much more time to get them, they just don't have this time. I think that the last return hostages emphasize it the most. You can see their condition behind the smiles. They seemed awful, and it will take them a long time to get back to being healthy. I'm not even talking about emotionally. I'm talking about physically. And we truly don't know how much time they have left. I heard some doctors that examined the last return hostages who said that one more month like that and they would not have survived. And that was probably the most hard thing to hear about the condition when they return.
So on that point about right now, we're in phase 1 of a current ceasefire deal, which, so everyone's aware, the ceasefire deal is simply temporary cessation of hostilities in exchange for Israel receiving hostages back, but has to give up convicted Palestinian terrorists and prisoners from their jails. But right now, this agreement, we believe the outline was first established last spring, in about May timeframe, and we heard from actually the previous administration a few months ago, just before leaving office, a number of interviews that were given that Hamas had rejected every offer that was on the table, essentially from November 2023 to the present. From your positions advocating for release of your loved ones, why do you think this deal came together now?
I think the change in the administration has been crucial in securing the progress. We as families are very grateful for all the efforts done by the previous administration and by both parties in the House and in Congress. But the change led to dynamics that allowed us to reach a point where hostages are being released. Because the rhetoric changed, because there are more creative ideas on the table that stakeholders in the Arab world need to deal with if they want to secure both a future for Gaza and the release of the hostages. And we see as well a level of commitment that is unparalleled and level of urgency that we have not seen before. I think the ability of this administration to pressure all sides, both Israel and Hamas through its sponsors, countries like Qatar, Turkey, and Iran, is essential. We're doing our part in Israel by pressuring our elected officials, by showing them the faces of the hostages, and by ensuring that they understand that while they need to consider the security elements, they also need to understand there is a social contract, there is a Jewish-Israeli ethos of redeeming the captives. Well, when we go internationally, we want to make sure that we hold accountable Hamas and their accomplices, and that the administration here have our backs. And we feel that they have our backs, and they want to see everyone home.
Yeah, I think you sense a different change. Do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, if there's something that you can't ignore of is that on the day President Trump started his role as the President of the United States, we'd start seeing hostages return. That's something that gave us hope that I don't think we had for a long time, because it was a long time since the last time we had a ceasefire and agreed, and hostages start to return. And now we can see it. It gives us strength. It gives us hope that Trump and this administration will do everything they can to really bring the hostages back. I think the first part that they did correctly is speaking on Hamas as the terror organization that they are, speaking about the terrible and awful things that they do and how it led us to that point. And in order to find a true solution, in order to achieve a real peace, a real future in the Middle East, to start the healing process that we all need so much, the only step is to return the hostages. It all starts with taking them, with kidnapping them. It can never end without them returning.
Eli, I want to turn to you on some of these points. One is, Gal mentioned that you're looking at the state of the condition that some of the recent, at least the male hostages, have been returning in. And it was notable when he was flying down to the Super Bowl, President Trump gave a press briefing. He answered some questions on his plane, and he said they looked like they survived the Holocaust, which is an astonishing thing to Jewish ears and just non-Jewish ears to hear in this day and age in 2025. What is his commitment thus far to bringing the hostages home mean to you?
First, I think all of us had the same vision when he saw the hostages. Even President Trump didn't have to stress that out. It was so clear. And he understand the situation where the hostages are right now. And I just want to repeat what Gal said. It gives us hope to see that kind of commitment from President Trump, from Witkoff. Really gives us hope to see those hugs every week. And it actually gives us the opportunity to imagine to ourselves how will it look when we will meet our loved ones. And it's some kind of manifesting that helps us to wake up and move on and stay focused. And I think eventually we have to stay focused on the last hostage. And I feel that that's where we are addressing right now. Because this administration is so goal-oriented, and hopefully we'll achieve it much sooner than we accepted. And we accepted.
Yes, expected, yes. So Moshe, on that point, phase 2 of the potential next phase of this 3-phase deal is being negotiated, is being discussed, could come to fruition. Is this something you guys are thinking about, or just every day is trying to advocate for the release, or are you thinking also, as the administration is, in terms of a phased approach?
I think it's important to emphasize that we are not policymakers. We're not military strategists. We're family members. We are not privy to the exact details in the conversations in closed doors, and we shouldn't be. Our consideration is different than policymakers, and I appreciate and want it to be different. Policymakers need to be clear-headed when they make the crucial decision of whether to go for an agreement or not. What we do try and emphasize when we meet them are not the fine details of an agreement, but that they'll have in mind the notion that Omri, a father to 2 daughters, a son, a husband, a man who was free, is now being chained and is screaming from the dungeons of Hamas on verge of death to be rescued. And when we try and emphasize that, I hope we give them a sense of urgency to the policymakers that whatever decision they're going to make, they need to act fast, they need to be decisive, and they will need to face the consequences of what the decision will be. I don't envy their position, but I'm certain they don't envy mine, because they wouldn't want to be a family member of a hostage. You know, there is a former minister in the Israeli government, Itamar Ben-Gvir, who last week said, and he's from the hard right in Israel, and he left the government because of the agreement. Last week he said to a family member of a hostage, if I was in your shoes, I would have done exactly the same. And I try and make sure the policymakers understand that sometimes they may need to put themselves in our shoes to uphold the social contract they have. When I served in the military for 6 years, I knew there is a social contract between the state that there will be nobody will be left behind, including myself. When I pay my taxes, when I do everything I can for my society, I know that they will not leave me behind in the dungeons of a terrorist organization. So I hope phase 2 will come into fruition. I hope it will be much sooner. I hope they will not be tied to the framework of the previous administration, which was very slow, very phase-driven, because we need the decisive action. And there is a short-term mission, rescuing the hostages. And if we'll not return to policies of the old, we will also achieve the medium and long-term mission of dismantling Hamas. But the key is the hostages first, and then with this administration, I think we have the guarantees to go for the long-term mission once we rescue them.
Yeah, I think it's a general sense that the winds in Washington have changed much to Israel's favor. A lot more support here these days, and it does give Israel an opportunity to think longer term about not reacting every day to something, but actually thinking more strategically, what is the proper A to B to C of the hostages or defeating Hamas, and how to engage with the administration. I want to turn a little bit to something that's really quite astonishing. If you've been following this story the last 16 months, I know basically everyone in this room and online has been, is the utter incompetence, inability, wanton disregard from the international humanitarian organizations, kind of international community, perhaps more generally. You think about the international community for the Red Cross and others, Amnesty International, whose mission is to service those who are at the least unlawfully detained, and even more to the point, who are abducted as hostages. Can you talk about interactions, engagements you've had with them, your perspective on these organizations? I know just last comment is early on in November or even October, I think, of 2023, there's a video of the Prime Minister with some of his cabinet offering, here is medicine that I know some of our citizens need in Gaza, can you bring it to them? And I think it was the Red Cross saying that basically we can't do that. So how have you guys engaged with, individually or collectively, with this community? Eli, if you want to go.
As I see it, we tried as much as we can to encourage the Red Cross and other humanitarian organizations to reach out to the hostages, bring us sign of lives. But we couldn't do so. I mean, they always claim that their hands are chained. They have a role, and they need to stick to that role. And they have no influence on the terror organizations like Hamas. But as we see so thin, starved hostages coming out, then we understand that probably a very big portion of the humanitarian aid that did entered the Gaza Strip didn't reach the hostages. And that's infuriating. But again, I feel at some point very early at this crazy journey, I think I understood that they are not relevant. I need to focus my energy on other things, on advocacy, on trying to tell Evetar's story in every place I can, meet with policymakers, and trying to always get to those people that are supposed to do something but they are not doing their role. It drives me crazy at some point. So I just stopped and refocused myself on the important things.
Well, if you could speak to them now, what would you say?
Yeah, I would say that I'm not going to get too much into it because there's a lot to say, but I would say that their silence is loud. Maybe I can understand that it's harder for them to get to the hostages. That Hamas is a terror organization. They're going around terrorists. It's not easy, but they don't speak about it. They don't tell the world that they're trying to see the hostages and Hamas don't let them. They're not telling the world how much suffering our hostages are going through. No, they don't care about them. They don't say anything about them, and you all know what they do say to the world when they speak. And I think that they have a big part in the failure of getting aid to the hostages that they need so much, or getting information for us about the hostages that they're.
Yeah. In the last 502 days ago, we never thought we'd be sitting here, and we wished we never would. In that time, in Israel, an organization a community has sprung up to support the hostage families, to advocate for releasing the hostages. You three are a great example of this. Also in the broader Jewish world. And beyond that, though, there are allies outside the Israel Jewish world who have really stepped up on individual and organizational level over these past 16 months. Can you speak a little bit about allies and partners and friends you've found along the way, both in the United States or outside, who have helped you in this endeavor?
Yeah, I can say that here in this country, the evangelical community stepped up from the first day, supporting the cause of the hostages and their families through donations, through invitations to events, through engagement with their communities, with leaders in their communities, and also with policymakers here in Washington, D.C. I think I found allies everywhere I went because there are so many members of the silent majority across the world who see the difference between the terrorist organization Hamas and our cause as Israelis, as hostage families. But sadly, there is a vocal minority that is trying to paint a narrative that is different. So we found allies everywhere. We went, whether here in the US, whether in Europe, all across the world, and we'll keep finding allies, in my opinion. But we need more and more people to speak up. It's not enough to be a silent majority that support us in private. We need more members of communities like the evangelical communities to speak up on our behalf, because we are small. The Jewish world is very small. At the end of the day, we have very small reach, and it's hard to defeat the narrative of a much larger community that is advancing that narrative. So whenever you go, and wherever you go, wear the spin, wear a dog tag for the hostages. Make sure your colleagues know that you were here today, listening to us. Make sure that in your next community meeting, you raise the point of what we can do to support the hostage families. Donations, prayers, action on the streets through rallies, advocacy on social media, engage others, make them understand that we can't do it on our own, and that there's still an uphill battle for us until Omri, Eviatar, Guy, and so many others, Matan, and so many others are going to be free. We need you, and we need to hear you more and more. This is a crucial month, crucial moment, because to secure the hostages' release, we need as many allies as possible, no matter of their political affiliation, no matter of their religious affinity. We need people to back us.
Eli, talk about some of your experience engaging with others outside the community.
I think that this is, it feels like the battle of good and evil right now. And I think people who speaks for us understand that. Because we are currently dealing with the devil, and we have to defeat it. And a crucial part of it is releasing all hostages. That's probably the most moral objective we have right now on the table. I think we see, as Moshe said, all around the world, people trying to do whatever they can to raise our voices. There are 22 young men, alive young men on the second phase, which are currently, nobody speaks about them, and the key word is visibility. We need the world to see them as the people they are, as the souls they are. And as Moshe said, we need you to help us make them as visible as we can to keep it top agenda until any one of them home.
Yeah, and on that note, we just have a few minutes left here. I want to give each of you an opportunity to kind of provide a closing remark, and you've done that in part so far, but this is an audience, you're in Washington, D.C., as you know, an audience of influential policymakers, those with access to the halls of Congress, to the White House, and many more, as I mentioned, online. So what is your message you want to leave this audience with? You want to go?
So my message, actually I said it before, but I will say it again. And I will answer also about what you just asked before. If there's something that I saw and I noticed the last 500 days is how everything is so extreme, how everyone's opinion is so extreme. And as we could feel a lot of hate, a lot of anti-Semitism, a lot of, really just a lot of hate, we could also feel a lot of love and a lot of support. And you always see that the people who really care about the peace, the people who care about the future, the people who care about living, they are on the side of getting the hostages back. They are on the side of getting a real solution to this problem. And as I said before, it will never end until all the hostages are back. We can never stop fighting for our loved ones. We can never start the healing process that the Middle East needs so much without them. And that's why if you care about the peace, if you care about the future, you should also care mostly about the hostages. And once again, thank you for your support. Thank you for everything you're doing. Don't stop doing.
Thank you, Bill. Eli?
I just repeat some of the things I've said. People were kidnapped from their beds, from a music festival, innocent souls who just live their lives, and they are captive at gunpoint for so much time, more than 500 days, which is crazy. Just think what happened in the last 500 days in your lives. They are suffering. They can be executed at any second. And We need to do whatever we can to make the world see them as people, not only as posters or names or numbers. They're people, and we can save them. We can save their lives. We can bring them back to their communities, and we will eventually. And that's I wanna finish with a hopeful note. We have to keep that in mind. They will come back, and we have to believe in our mind, our soul, that they are coming back, and that will help us do whatever we can to bring them back home.
Thank you. Moshe?
I would like you all to close your eyes. I want you to imagine my nieces, Ronnie and Alma, running to Omri. I want you to imagine my sister Lishai kiss him after so many days of tireless advocacy. I want you to see in your eyes his father, Danny, shaving his beard. He's been growing his beard ever since Omri was taken. I want you to feel the warmth and love of a family being reunited. And take that warmth and love and use it to be our shield and armor. A shield and armor when we come here to DC and try and meet as many policymakers as possible. Our shield and armor in the traditional media. Our shield and armor on social media, on the streets, everywhere you go, as I said earlier. We need that shield and we need that armor so that that dream of Ronnie, Alma, Lishai, Dani, embracing Omri again will be realized.
Amen. Well, I really, from the bottom of my heart, thank the three of you and Ilana for coming to join us today, sharing your stories. I think the idea that this is a moral struggle of our time is not an understatement, is understated, frankly. And in Jewish tradition, we were taught that to save a life is to save a universe. So there are 73 universes right now held captive in Gaza. And may we pray that they come home soon, speedily in our days.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you.